Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hunter Mozingo bringing you your daily market insight video for Monday, September 20th. And we've got quite a bit in this video today, some changes to the trend gauge, changes to the market state. Obviously, if you were paying attention to the markets today, you know it was a pretty ugly day. We're going to get into those charts on the indices as well as some of those stocks. But the main focus of today is finding those relative strength standouts on a really, really bad day in the markets. That's the main thing I want to bring to the viewers today is those relative strength standouts on a really poor day. Additionally, we're going to go over the buys and sells, or primarily the sells today for Grotection. Additionally, we're going to look at some of the weakest and worst performing sectors / stocks for the day on top of that. So let's get into it, everybody. What just happened? Broad sell-off, indices break key moving averages. And when I say broad, I mean broad. There was really no sector safe. It wasn't like you had utilities and consumer staples and real estate green and growth down. This was pretty bad in most areas, whether it's industrials or oil or software stocks, whatever the case may be. This was a pretty ugly day across the board. Really no sustained bouncing or positive traction up until the last 20 or 30 minutes or so of today's trading. But like I said, we'll look at those charts here in a second. You can see the G5 leading the way down. G5 down about 2.7%, S&P down about 1.7%, Q's down a little over 2%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 1.78, mid caps down 1.6, and the Russell down about 2.5. Most all of those were off of their lows for the day. Like I said, we got a decent finish to the day, although 90% of today's trading was pretty bad. So now we're going to look at these indices in here in a second, and those lows from today become very important. So we'll look at that. Before we do, the market state has been adjusted to a correction. So it was short-term pullback. Leaders were acting okay last week. However, things can change very quickly, and that's exactly what happened today. We saw a lot of leaders begin to break key moving averages, and that is reflected both in the trend gauge and in the market state. So you can see on the trend gauge, we have moved market leaders from up to neutral today with a small arrow pointing towards bearish for that exact reason. Short term has been moved to bearish also today, as we got a really clear and clean break of all of those short-term moving averages, right? That's your 21 EMA is the primary one you're concerned with on the trend gauge, but definitive breaks below those moving averages today. And in a lot of ways, we saw that with the 50-day moving average too. So that is now pointing towards bearish as well. And long term, we've added this little small yellow arrow here pointing towards neutral, as IWM, or the Russell 2000, is slightly below to right on the 200-day. Mid caps kind of bounced off of it today, but some of these indices getting a little close. So some negative changes to the trend gauge reflective of the action today, which was pretty brutal. And we're going to get into these charts here in just a second. But before I do that, please allow me to reference the team here at Revere. I know it's a bad day, but nonetheless, feel free to ask questions if there's a stock you want to know about, a certain thing that I said. Just please send me an email. I'm happy to answer your questions. If you're interested in what Revere does in regards to our investment approach, our strategy, you can email me, or you can email anybody here, Dan, Tim, Meryl, Alex, or Don at revereasset.com as well. So let's take a look at the indices, everybody. So this is going to be the Dow, and we'll just start here. So the Dow is one of the weaker of the indices, right? I mentioned that in some of these last videos, and it's really kind of down here in no man's land. So now you've got this 200-day that's a little bit, about 2.5% below. So really on DIA, I'm going to be watching the highs and the lows of today, and then I'm watching this 200-day moving average. And you're going to notice that's a recurring theme with these indices. You want to watch the highs and lows for today, and then any moving average that might be slightly below, or maybe it touched it and bounced off of it. For example, like MDY, this bounced off of the 200 today. So you certainly want to pay attention to the low of today. We sliced through that low, and then we most likely sliced through the 200-day moving average as well. Let's move to small caps here. same kind of situation here, kind of in no man's land below today's low. If they get through today's high, that would put them at or slightly above the 200-day moving average. So same situation. I want to pay attention to the lows of today and the highs of today, and not just on these indices. That applies to individual stocks as well. So let's look at QQQ and SPY, and you can see this is. I mentioned we finished relatively strong. I'm going to show you a 5 minute so you can see what I'm talking about here. That was really all made up in the last 30 minutes or so of trading there. It was prior to that just steadily angling downward on the Qs and the S&P for the better part of today. Similar scenario here. I'm watching the lows of today, which are right around 360 on QQQ, and the highs. If we blow through this low on QQQ, then I start watching this 100-day moving average. So I've adjusted my moving averages here on MarketSmith. This pink line is no longer the 8-day exponential. That is the 100-day simple moving average here that I'm using below the 50, just to identify a possible another level of support for these indices and for these stocks. And then lastly, let's take a look at the S&P. And you can see the S&P basically undercut and reclaimed its 100-day moving average. Once again, I'm watching the lows of today and I'm watching the highs of today for the S&P. If it breaks the low of today tomorrow, then you know that you're breaking below that 100-day moving average again. Beyond that, you've got some of these previous areas here that might act as support, and then you've got the 200 about another 6% down. So like I said, not the best action in a lot of these indices. Some clear breaks of moving averages, as you could see there. IWM below almost all of its moving averages. Mid caps only above the 200. The Dow is only above the 200 at this point. So some poor action in these names, some resolution to the downside per se as well. So let's talk about stocks that showed relative strength. I'm going to blow through about 10 of these right here. But these were the standouts on my screen today, and I want to relay those to you guys. So what I'm looking for here is I want to see stocks that were either down less than the indices themselves or actually green for the day. So this is DoorDash down only about 1%, and that's even with it being pretty extended. Very impressive in my opinion. ASAN, incredibly impressive, also extended, was able to finish green on above average volume. Some serious accumulation going on here in ASAN. Datadog, which actually went green in the midst of all the craziness today, but finished very well, down about 0.5%. Once again, less than the indices. That's what we're looking for here on a day where you've got the NASDAQ was down 2%, the S&P was down 2%. I want to look at stocks that were down less than 2% or were green on that day. Doesn't mean that relative strength will continue, but it's a good place to build a list so you can monitor those names moving forward. I'm going to keep going through these here. TMO, another one that was relatively extended, only down 1% here. That's an inside day, holding up relatively well. Team, excuse me, only down 1% here as well. Another one that's extended, that's a recent gap that's held up really nicely and acting well, down less than the indices. Once again, LOVE, Lovesac. This is a furniture making type of company here, and you've got a really positive reaction today, up 2%. There was not many stocks that were green. And I'll tell you guys this, on I have a watch list of about 1,400 stocks, excuse me. And at any given point today, I would say we were at about 5 to 8% of those 1,400 stocks were green today. So anything that was green is of importance. There's not many days where you have, or where I've seen out 95% of those 1,400 be red. So you want to pay attention to what's green today. I'm going to go through the rest of these here. Hubs down less than the indices, bouncing, holding up at the 21. You want to look for things that also bounced at key levels of support, because there's certainly plenty that didn't. Bros, this is the standout of the day. Bros up 20%. This is a recent IPO. It was up 120% on one of these days here. I think that's its initial IPO day. But very volatile at the time being, very extended, but nonetheless incredibly strong, especially compared to the market today. And just a couple more here. Task, also green today. finished pretty strong. And last one, Crocs, not necessarily holding up better than the indices, but I liked that it finished at the top of the range, bounced off the 21 and got through the 150 level. So I wanted to bring that one to you guys. And let's go look at some of what performed the worst. And that's really going to be your big tech really had a tough go of it today. Your Amazon, your Apple, Tesla. Most of these names were down anywhere from 2.5% to 4%, more so than the indices today. You also had stocks dragging on the Qs. It was actually down for the better part of the day, about 1% more than the Qs for the majority of the day. XOP down about 5 or 6% today, down 4%, excuse me. So oil and gas was one of the lagging sectors. KRE and KBE were also some of the lagging sectors. Both of these are going to be down about 3%. XME about the same, 3.5% to 4% down today. Really, really brutal sell-off here in XME. Those NUE, STLD names, all of those were down 6, 7, 8% today or more for the most part. Brutal name for a lot of the metals and mining. And then you've also got crypto really getting crushed today. GBTC down about 8% and Ethereum down about 9, 10% as well. So like I said, some really rough action in some names, some volatile behavior, plenty of stocks that were down 2, 3, 4 times as much as the indices were today. But I do have some trades for you guys today. We did make one buy. We put on a hedge with SPXS. I know Don is going to go over that in more detail on his video tomorrow. But I'm going to run through a few of the tickers that we sold because these are some of the big laggards for the day. So we sold DraftKings here as it broke the 21. Really clear break of the 21 and couldn't get back over it. So tough action for DraftKings here. We sold the balance on U as it also broke the 21 and could not quite get back above it. Sold the remaining position in Docs as well. This one, same story, broke the 21, could not get back above it. DVN, same situation. Tried to get back over that 21 today at one point, but just could not do it. Got rejected pretty hard. And Snow, we also sold this one today on its break of the 21. We did do a partial sell in NVIDIA as it slices through the 21 and for the time being has bounced off of the 50. This one was a lot closer to 206, 207 up until that last 30 minutes. It finished a lot better. And we took a little bit off of Affirm as well as it slices through the 8-day. You can't see it because I have the 100-day as the pink line, but Affirm was right, the 8 days right around 108, 108.50 or so. And last partial sell on the day, AMBA, same story, was slicing through the 8-day here. So we took off a little bit of that one. So lots of stuff breaking down, like I said. So we're really focusing on what bounced at support, what showed relative strength, and we want to monitor those names moving forward. And so hopefully I gave you guys a good starting list here to work with as we move forward and see how the market plays out for the rest of this week. So thank you all for listening. As always, I will see you on Thursday's video as well as the podcast. I hope you all have a great week.